Welcome back to our YouTube series on SAP Business Technology Platform. Today, we will focus on SAP Discovery Center, looking at the roadmap to getting started, the service catalog, and what missions are all about. I'm joined here with Rainey from the SAP Developer Relations team. If you'd like to follow along on your own screen, please visit discovery-center.cloud.sap. First off, Riley, what is Discovery Center?
Hi, Ali. So Discovery Center is an interesting place, an interesting website that we have that I think the prime purpose you could summarize by saying it really connects the business functions of BTP and the business value to a lot of the technology that you're exposed to. We've got several major components, and I'm looking at the website right here that you can see. And as you said, discoverycenter.cloud.sap is where I'm at. And you can see two major functions on here are very, very obvious, missions and services. There's one other function that helps connect some of the business aspects of this, which is a cost estimator. We're going to look at all three of those today in this session.
Great. It seems super valuable to users. So on the main screen, you've mentioned how we have services and missions. Can you give us some insight on what the difference between those two are?
You bet. So services is actually the authoritative service catalog of all the different subcomponents that are available within SAP's Business Technology Platform. Those are the intrinsic services that I'll build applications, extensions, or integrations for anything that I'm doing with BTP. Missions are a little bit different animal, and what it does is it gives you the ability to take a look at how those different services are cross-connected to build applications, to build an integration or do anything interesting. And in that connection and the descriptions of these that show up in missions are all done at a business level. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later in our session today, but that's sort of the relation between missions and services. And the estimator, of course, we'll look at separately too.
Great. Should we jump right into services?
Yeah, let's dive into it. So here I'm clicking on the business or the service catalog button. And as I said, this is actually the authoritative list of all the services and components that are available within BTP. So you'll see lots of SAP websites actually refer you back to this subsection of the Discovery Center website for a variety of purposes. For what we're looking at today, you can see that there's a list of the 96 component services that are available today by title. These are all tiles that I can click on and explore, but they're also categorized by different solution categories: data and analytics, app development, foundation, meaning the services that other services run on, the platforms that things run on, integrations, and then other capabilities like mobile versus IoT, DevOps, security, and those types of categorizations. So if I look at any one of these in particular, it'll filter out and show me just what's available within that particular area. I can click on the tiles and we'll explore those one by one, not all 96, but just some of the highlights.
Great, 96 services available, and there's only more being added to our service catalog all the time. So how do we find which ones to try for free?
Well, that's a really cool point. So one of the things, or one of the categories here that I can click on is free tier services, and that gets me to this very, very directly. You'll notice that the tiles are decorated with different markers here, and you can see that each one of these has a free tier marker that's designating that. And if I click on any particular tile, it'll show me an introduction to that particular service. In this case, we're looking at the ABAP environment, which is more of a platform within a platform for SAP. You've got introductory materials here, and then a number of other sub-tabs that let us explore other aspects of that particular service. Let me just add, around free tier, there's a few things as you go here that might be interesting and important. So first off, clearly we clicked on this tab that particular button that says show me just the free tier services. So by definition, what I'm looking at here has free services available, but you'll see that there's also paid production service tiers available for this, and you can go to this pricing tab and it'll show you the information that's pertinent there. Another piece of this that's just important to have in the back of your mind is that SAP does have different major pricing models, contracts, if you want to look at it that way, for signing up for these different services. Two major ones that you're going to come across is something called pay-as-you-go and also the Cloud Platform Enterprise Agreement, the two things that you see here. The pricing is different for each one of these because they come with different contract terms. And one other interesting or important aspect of this is that if you go to the SAP store to sign up for a free trial of SAP BTP, the kind of account that you'll get by default is a pay-as-you-go account. That's a month-to-month, pay for the services that you consume, where you choose to consume a paid service. But what we're looking at here is a list of free services that, even though you're in a pay-as-you-go account, the service level that you're getting when you sign up for this particular plan is actually no cost to you.
Great. So free tier is pay as you go, $0.
Exactly.
Can you show us one of the services and what features are offered?
So let me go back to the services tab here. Let's say, for example, that I was interested in process automation. So I could do a search for that here. I can look at this particular service here, which is SAP Process Automation. And again, I get in the overview a list of different features and capabilities that are available to me. I can click on this link to get to maybe other brochures or technical or even business information about what the service does, the core capabilities of it, and whatnot. Again, the pricing tab here. Missions are something that we're going to explore in a moment, but these missions are all ones that highlight how this particular service might be used in a typical business use case. SAP takes pride in the roadmaps, the precision that we publish and the information that we publish here, and those roadmaps are actually captured officially in the service catalog. So you can see quarter by quarter the features that we have planned for release for this particular service and get an idea about new things that are coming down the pike. And then also for a particular service, you can look at case studies that show how this was actually used in a real customer situation to get value out of BTP.
Great. Are there any other features or valuable information our users should look at while looking at the services?
Yes, there are some other interesting things to explore. If you go to the top level overview page for any service, if you look at the right-hand side, there's a number of tiles here that provide links to other information. There's information about technical documentation for the tool. There's information about other resources, either marketing or technical, about the product and the features that it provides. There's also, within the scope of learning, specific tutorials that you can go visit within our developers.sap.com center. I click on that link and it'll show me low-level hands-on tutorials that I can explore using the free tier version of this service or SAP BTP trial. These are a little bit deeper than some of the things that we're going to look at today, but a handy way to explore this in a little bit more rich fashion. There's also the SAP community. If I click on this link here, it's going to take me to the SAP community pages and the topic page for this specific product or service that I was looking at. This gives you a way to look at what other people are saying about this product, blogs, questions, answers, all sorts of interesting supplemental information coming out of the community. All of that's here for you too, as well as support and the ability to file support incidents, how to get support on that particular service.
Awesome. So now that we understand how to find services and what they are, let's look at the bigger picture. How do I solve business problems with BTP?
Yeah, so clearly services are individual components. One of the key questions always is going to be, if I'm building an application, if I'm doing extending or integrating, how do those services and components need to fit together to actually build a business solution? And that's something that we designed into Discovery Center through this vehicle that I am showing here called Missions. There's a catalog of missions available. They show you a business context around a particular solution, shows you a little bit about the value of each one of these, and we'll look at these in a little more depth.
Great. It seems like there's a lot of valuable information here. How does someone start digesting all of this?
Well, the first thing I would suggest anyone look at here is the very top left tile is titled Getting Started with SAP BTP Enterprise Account. This is something that the welcome email, if you sign up for BTP free tier, you're going to get a link to this. It's going to suggest that you run through this, and I would certainly suggest through it too. The setup here is a little bit different, but still similar. It's showing you a little bit about why you would want to do this, what you're going to get out of running through this. And what this is doing is it's going to take you through a series of steps that's going to lay the groundwork for almost anything else that you would do. There's a set of common procedures that you're going to run through to set up your account, to give you access to particular commonly used services, and to configure things to run through some of these regular business value missions that we'll take a look at in a second.
Yeah, and I guess we can also refer to the other video on the playlist, Getting Started with SAP Cockpit, right? Another valuable resource.
Absolutely. There's a link to that that'll be posted in the bottom associated with this video. That's a good supplemental exercise. It actually will go through a number of these steps that you're seeing here. It also sticks on the front end, though, a real step-by-step guide to show you what you're going to see in the SAP store, what the onboarding experience looks like in general, and sort of it goes through some of the steps that you see in here, but this is a really complete treatment of all of that once you've got the account alert email that the account has been provisioned and is ready to go.
Great. Could you show us a mission that would have to do with one of the services?
Yeah, so let's take a look at a business case here. So again, this particular panel is organized in much the same way that it was for the service catalog. You've got all these tiles. Each one corresponds to this thing that we call the mission, and that's our own artificial construct. A way to look at a mission is a use case, a business valuable use case. They're subcategorized by different functional categories here: extensions, integrations. There's the onboarding category, which we were kind of just looking at, and some SAP LOBs like success factors, for example. I'm just going to pick one that I know pretty well here. Process automation. Go back to that. Anytime you do a search here or any kind of filtering, one thing to remember is that these tiles are going to be organized by the number of companies or the number of individuals that have actually selected to go through this particular mission. So this one at the top left actually corresponds to the most common starter business process automation mission. So I'll click on it here. And it's got a number of top level tabs. The first one is the overview. And again, a mission is really a business use case. So I'm going to see here what's the common business problem that this particular mission is oriented towards solving. Where do you end up at the end of this? What's the value that you're going to get out of it? You have the ability to look at the technical architecture associated with this particular mission that we're going to walk through, all the different technical elements. And it's important to remember that any particular mission might actually be composed of several component services. So several components from that service catalog. As it turns out, this particular example that we're looking at here, you've got an approval process that's being enabled by the business process automation component. Cloud Foundry is where that runs. That's a lower level SAP component. And then this is connecting to a backend SAP HANA system, either in the cloud or on premise, to get the information that's being used to generate the approvals and actually walk through the process involved. This will also typically give you not just the technical architecture, but also a description of the use case, maybe from a UML point of view. So you see what roles are involved in the notifications, what's the general flow of information between those roles and whatnot. All of that's going to be available to you here. So the next tab that we have here is something called the project board. This has a very Kanban style appearance to it, and that's exactly what it is. It's a set of steps that I'll execute to do this exploration of this particular mission. The discovery phase is typically individual introduction vignettes, videos, papers that you might read about what this product is all about and how it's going to be used in this particular mission. At the end of any particular step, I can mark it as complete, and it'll keep tabs on where I am within the process. So there, that particular one is marked as completed. I'm going to go through these one at a time, typically in the sequence that is shown on the board here. But as I get to the setup phase and implementation phase, one of the key attributes of this is giving me a chance to get hands-on access to the tools through the actual SAP BTP cockpit, the development tools. You're getting to experience what it's like to do the setup, development, and actual execution of this in a real SAP environment. One of the virtues of all of this, especially with BTP free tier, is I can actually connect this to live systems on the back end that I might have and see a little bit about how it might work in my own environment, of course. Now, one of the things that you'll see here is within each one of these steps, we have tutorials associated with each of these. It has a series of low-level steps that I'll walk through. It walks you through visually what you're interacting with, what you're going to see, if there's any particular input or code that you need to input in a particular step. You're guided entirely through that whole process. And at the end of that, of course, all of these will be completed. You'll get a taste and a feel for what this particular solution is all about. On the way, you're going to see what the business value about this mission is all about, and also understand a lot more about the capabilities of the tools involved and how they relate with each other. There's other tabs in this too. Extra resources like we had with the service catalog, how to get support for this. And this is another important aspect of this and a value add within Discovery Center is each mission has associated SAP employees who are designated experts. They're either the people who authored this mission or maintain it over time, so they really know what they're talking about. You have the ability in here to actually enter questions and interact with those folks to get support on this particular mission, not just on the tool itself. Then there's also the ability through the SAP community, as you see over here, to see what questions or issues that people are running into, how those get answered. This is actually connecting back to the SAP community to get that information. There's the customer stories about how this has been actually deployed in real customer environments. And when you get to this mission and you're looking for other things to explore, you've got a tab here that shows you other missions that use these particular components in other interesting ways.
So there's lots of great information on missions. We've gone through services and missions and how we can try this for free. But how do we figure out how much this might cost us to implement for our business?
Yeah, and that's that third tool that I mentioned when we got started. SAP's Discovery Center provides its own cost estimation tool. Once I start a mission, you'll see a button like this over here, but I can also get to it through this icon here at the top of the screen. Let me just click on it here. The reason why it's good to press on that within the mission is it knows what services I'm going to be using as this part of the solution. So it'll actually start to prepare a bill of materials for me about what's going to be part of the solution based on the mission that I'm currently executing. If I click on this button up here in this top corner, it'll just start out with a blank estimate, no information in there. I can get to the destination that I want to arrive at here in much the same way, either way. This just gives me a shortcut to that. So here you see this particular estimate already has a line item for build process automation. It shows me pricing based on the number of active users, and you see the different price breakpoints here. Before I get started in this, though, I want to do just a little bit of customization. So I click on this Customize button here, and probably the main thing is I can select the currency that my company operates in. Let me just shift that to US dollars. Also, I can enter information about which contract I'm operating under. Again, the two major contracts that you'll run into here are Cloud Platform Enterprise Agreement, which we have here, which is sort of a fixed amount of dollars with a particular discount associated with it that I can spend any way I want to. There's also the pay-as-you-go, which is a little more lightweight model where I'm paying for the actual services I'm consuming without any particular commitment month to month or year over year. I can also select the time period involved. That's more applicable to the enterprise agreement, but this will give me month by month costs as I've configured it here. So once I've done that, then I need to select for business process automation which service plan I'm going to use. And of course, free is free, but the catch there is that free services don't, SAP is not able to provide any productive support for that. So in a productive scenario, we want to explore price. So we go with either standard users or advanced users. I won't get into the details about that for this particular product. These plans that you're going to see here are all plans that are specific to this particular tool or this particular service. So I'm selecting standard user just for the sake of simplicity here. You'll notice also that it has a drop down for region because these are cloud services that we're talking about. They run in a number of different data centers, and that's exactly the way to think about an SAP BTP region. Is it's a geographical data center. Different data centers based on the hyperscaler vendors that we use, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Ali Cloud. All of those are going to have different price structures associated with them based on their own geography. And of course, there's differences in their pricing each way there. Here, I can explore different locations that are available, but this will show me all the places where this particular service is available. And because I might, say, be running this in the US, I might want to select a regional US data center. I put that in there, and then I can go in and put in the number of users. So in this particular case, maybe let's say 500 users to run this particular application. Although there's not an algorithm assist here, one of the things that you can do is explore price breaks in the model. So for example, if I was on the very edge of 500 being the right number of users that I knew I was going to need today, I can go in and explore and say, okay, 600 users, well, that's actually $200 cheaper because I was right there on the price break point. You can play simple games like that very, very easily. And then I can see what the total price is going to be. I would do this line by line for each of the services where I have a mission that involves multiple services and get an idea of that to deploy this particular solution in that region, here's going to be my cost.
Great. Thanks, Riley, for a great overview of SAP Discovery Center. We've got a complete description and reference for SAP Business Technology Platform services that you can explore. We have learned about missions that we can put together in a business context to help you understand and explore these hands-on. And you now have the tools to estimating the cost of deploying solutions. To learn more about SAP BTP, go to sap.com/BTP and sign up today to start using for free. If you have any questions about SAP Discovery Center or BTP today, please drop them in the comments below. And with that, thanks again, Riley, and have a great day.
You're welcome, Ali.